Boss, it's done. The other families have fallen in line, and without Falcone, he's got no competition. Weapon shipment from Kaliningrad and Lagos are inbound by Friday. We'll have enough firepower to lock down the East End for good. You boys have done everything I've asked for. The boss couldn't ask for better men. But there's one thing nobody's been able to solve. Not Falcone, not Maroni, no one. What are we gonna do about the bat? Gotham City, 9 p.m. Gotham always knew how to bleed into your bones. On a night like this, cold, wet, and stitched with shadow, even the brickwork seemed to shiver. But inside a fourth-floor apartment in Midtown Heights, the storm wasn't the loudest thing in the room. Jennifer Erskine was chasing ghosts. The kind that wore suits, carried guns, and didn't show up in public records. She wrote for the Weekly Chronicle. Some folks called it second-rate. But in a city this corrupt, second-rate was usually one story away from dead right. She'd been at it for hours. Notes from a source, anonymous, skittish, and probably half-cooked, pointed to a new name rising in the underworld. Not Falcone. Not Maroni. Something new. Someone careful. But the pieces weren't clicking. Every sentence felt like a cigarette with no spark. And worse, she couldn't shake the feeling she wasn't alone. It had started 2 nights ago. A pair of guys across the street, parked too long, stared too long. One wore a bomber jacket with the collar flipped too high. The other, a scar on his lips and dead eyes. They didn't say anything. They didn't need to. Jennifer was smart enough to know what was an unspoken threat. And the worst part wasn't that they'd seen her. It was that they hadn't looked away. She tried to focus, tried to get back to the story, but paranoia, that's a louder voice than truth sometimes. So she stood up, walked away from the screen. Papers scattered across the desk like pieces of a map she couldn't read, and made her way to the kitchen. 1 glass of wine. That was the deal she made with herself. Just one. Just one to quiet the fear scratching at the inside of her skull. Outside, Gotham kept weeping. Inside, Jennifer Erskine took her first sip and wondered if the rain would be loud enough to cover a screen. The wine helped. Not enough to fix the story, or to shake the eyes watching from across the street, but just enough to pretend like neither mattered for a minute. Jennifer let herself relax. Back pressed to the worn leather, eyes half closed, trying to believe she was still just a journalist, and not a target. Then came the knock. Too hard, too late, too wrong.
Gotham PD. Miss Erskine, we need to ask you a few questions.
Her gut twisted. Not fear. Instinct. She'd talked to real GCPD officers. They didn't knock like they were breaking ribs, and they sure as hell didn't sound like they gargled gravel for breakfast.
Just a second. I need to put something on.
She didn't go to the bedroom. She didn't grab a coat. She moved straight to the desk. The notes, the names, the map she'd been building with half-broken pen and a bottle of cheap wine. She couldn't leave them. Not for them. Not when she was this close. Just kick it in. That was her cue. Fire escape. No shoes, no plan, just adrenaline. And a soaked city waiting below. She grabbed what she could. A folder, a flash drive, the last 2 pages she scrawled on. And she climbed out into the storm. While the shadows behind her stepped into the room too late, Jennifer Erskine was gone. But the story was still alive. For now. The fire escape groaned beneath her weight. Soaked through, rusted, and barely holding together. Jennifer moved fast, half running, half sliding. Rain blurring her vision, panic sharpening her instincts. There! Down the fire escape!
Shit! Oh my god!
The first bullet missed. The second one didn't. It tore through the railing inches from her hand. And that's when she stopped thinking. She just ran. Down 3 flights with no shoes, no cover, no plan. Just rain and steel, and growing certainty that she was going to die before this story ever hit print. The alley was 20 feet below, and for one terrifying second, she thought about jumping. She made it. Alive. Barely. She didn't look back. Didn't wait to see if they followed. The only thing that mattered now was getting somewhere safe and finishing the story. She hit the alleyway hard, knees biting into cold concrete. But she didn't stop. One breath, one look back, then she ran. She was 3 steps from disappearing into the alley's mouth when he stepped out of the shadows. Easy, sweetheart. The third man was waiting, like he knew her next move before she did. One silver revolver gleaming in the streetlight, and not an ounce of hesitation in his eyes. No more running. Jennifer froze. This wasn't a bluff anymore. This was the end. Look up there! He's the freaking man! They didn't run. Not yet. But fear hung heavy, thick in their throats, bleeding into their trigger fingers. Before they could think, he was already among them. Fast, silent. A shadow wrapped in vengeance. Jennifer dropped to the ground, crawling backwards. All she could see was black. Black fists, black capes, black fury. And then, stillness. Each of the men that had tried to hurt her were on the ground, writhing in pain. And finally, the figure stepped towards her. Her eyes were wide. What kind of monster of a man was this, who could take on 3 armed men with just his fists? And then he asked it, "Are you all right?" Downtown Gotham, 11 p.m. Jennifer Erskine, freelance journalist turned full-time target. She started poking around 6 weeks ago. Followed the money trail where no one else would. I kept tabs. Standard protocol. New voices digging around in the dirt usually don't last long. She lasted longer than most. At first I thought Cobblepot might be making moves from inside Blackgate, but this new player is different. Nikolai Corvain, Tommy Knotts Morales, Aiden Murphy. Russians, cartel, Irish. Old names and new hands. But something's off. This isn't territorial. It's surgical. No flair, no noise. Just clean insertions. Cold chaos. None of it makes any sense right now. But I've got one lead. Doc 19. Off-grid manifest. No official shipments. No Union presence. But 3 unmarked containers have moved through in the last 10 days. Someone's building something, and they've got plans for Gotham. But this is my city. So it's time I paid a visit.